Hi guys, this is I think our sixth, maybe our seventh IronWorks remote, and I hope this doesn't continue, but I hope while it does continue that you will read these and watch these every week to stay connected. And I hope you'll read the email you got this week, because we have a special drive-in IronWorks coming up called Bumper Brothers. I'd love to see you there. It's coming up in just a week or so. I don't know if you're going to like what I have to say today, and I'm not sure I do either. In fact, I'm not sure really where this is going to go. But I want to be honest with you. I hope I'm always honest with you. I guess what I mean is I want to be transparent with you that I've been on a slow boil for about 5 or 6 weeks, and you probably know why. It's because of the situation that we're in. And I know, when you're on a boil, pretty soon you start to steam, and that needs to go somewhere. And so maybe today is a ventilation. I hope it's not a scorching of anybody, but I also pray that my native frustrations and anger will also drive me forward into something productive. And I hope that's true for you as well. I don't really like where I am today, and it's mainly because of the conditions under which we are operating. And I wish it were different. I feel like I've run outside in a thunderstorm with an umbrella trying to protect myself, and the water's already up to my knees, and the umbrella doesn't do a whole lot of good. By that umbrella, what I mean is my native optimism, my adaptability, my creativity. Really, those aren't working right now because there's other agendas and decisions being made that are beyond my control, and I feel rather helpless. And so I wanted to share with you some of my frustration and anger and where that comes from. I don't want it to end there, but I want to share with you kind of my process in what I'm starting to call a mandemic, not a pandemic. It's the human-caused crisis that I think we are extending beyond what it needs to be. But let me give you some reasons why I'm frustrated. I have 6 of them, only 6 of them. It starts with this, that from the very beginning, from the moment the lockdown, the social distancing, some of these things were mentioned, I've deemed it as a colossal failure of leadership. What I mean by that is that the fundamental role of leaders is to see a problem, name the problem accurately, define what needs to be done, and then scale the response in ways that will bring about a resolution without doing other collateral damage. So when we react, when we reflex to one thing and it doesn't take into account dozens of other things, that's not good leadership. Now, I'm not blaming any particular person for this. I'm just saying that the failure to see the spiral that we've been cast into was a major failure of leadership, really internationally, because now we're caught in a cycle of fear and political paralysis that nobody knows how to get out of, because it will take great human courage and risk to do it. Well, that frustrates me. I'm not a perfect leader. Nobody is. But that's been a frustration from the very beginning. The second one is, the second frustration is the fear-mongering that I see, not only by the media, but by the talking points of so many people who are spokespersons for the situation. And what irritates me most is the false criteria by which people are measuring some kind of return to normal. You've heard it. I've heard it several times. I've heard people say, you know, if one life gets saved in what we're doing, that will be worth it. And that is such sophomoric good intention that bears no reality to how we govern anything. That really frustrates me, because we don't use that same criteria when it comes to driving or drinking or abortion or obesity or many other problems. So when we say, when we fearmonger and say we're only going to be safe to return when there's no more risk, that's just an impossible standard. A third frustration is the exaggeration and deception. I don't want to get into conspiracy theories. I'm trying not to hold any of those, but when statistics are manipulated or numbers are given without context, unfortunately, because we live in such a culture that doesn't evaluate things, we mislead people. A fourth frustration is the suppression, the taking down of contrary opinions or contrary experiences through the major carriers of our information, like Google and Facebook and YouTube. And that's very concerning for me on many, many levels. A fifth frustration is the collateral damage. And the economic collateral damage, the meltdown that we're in, which even if it stopped today instantaneously would take us years to recover from. And I know that many of you are suffering from that. There are businesses I'm speaking to right now that will not survive. There are families under great tension. There are kids who are missing part of their education, maybe much more. And distance learning and e-learning and learning at home is not the same for most of our children as learning in school. There'll be depression, there'll be suicide, much more addiction. There's going to be a food supply disruption. And that's just talking about suburban America. But we know that over 150 million people around the world are in danger of starvation right now. And they live literally from hand to mouth. They don't have an option to simply sequester in their living room. They don't have a living room. They're starving right now. And that's the collateral damage. The sixth one is the marginalizing of the church. And I'm not saying that that's being said publicly. I'm just simply saying, look what's happened to us, that we are at the complete whim of government officials as to when we can reassemble. Now, we're thankful for the technology that we're using, but we are also subject to the czars of that technology if and when they should decide we're saying something or doing something that they disapprove. So just recognize the vulnerability, the marginalization that is. So I think we're in a mandemic. The major causes right now are not due to an illness. They're due to the vicissitudes of human nature, of which I'm a student, and I am a person, and so my frustrations are probably shared by you and by many people on the planet. So that's why I call it a mandemic. Now, having said that, that's just one side. I'm constantly in this tension of balancing what I'm seeing and watching versus what I believe and my purpose in life. And one of my guiding barriers in my life, one of my guardrails in life has always been James chapter 1, verse 20. It says, the anger of man, the anger of Roger, does not produce the righteousness of God. So all that I've said is sort of my self-counsel to recognize when I get to this place, my anger, I can't yell enough at somebody, I can't write enough editorials to somebody, I can't march against somebody enough to work the righteousness of God. So I have to calm down, step back, and say that at a higher level I know that God is working, and I know He is. And my ground level frustration and anger needs to submit to a greater picture that God is working. I believe God is awakening us. He's awakening me. You see what's happening to me? God is stripping me of my competence. He's stripping me of my ability to change certain things. And though I don't want to be a doormat, I also recognize that there's so many things that I'm frustrated with that I have no control over. And the question is, am I aware that God is working at a higher level? That He's shaping me, He's breaking me, He's taking things out of my hands that I formerly thought would never be taken out of my hands and asking me, Roger, do you trust me? And I want to ask you that same question. Do you see how God is pruning the church, pruning us from ease and convenience and a lot of our spectatorism? I believe if we do get to regather again, we are going to not take for granted the fellowship that we've always had. I believe that God is driving me to dependence and humility and taking away some of my Americanized assumptions about what life ought to be like, what it's always been like for me. And I believe that God is making a new way for the gospel. And I don't want to stand in the way of that through my frustrations and anger. I want God to flow through me to flow through you. And though we need opportunities to vent and process our emotions and not deny them, they need to be submitted to a greater purpose, which is, Lord, what are you going to use in me to help someone else see who Jesus really is? So that's where I am. I'm constantly pinging between those two boundaries in my life. So let me give you 8 questions I wrote down in my journal the other day that have been helpful for me. They're also in your email, just so you don't forget them. Here they are. Number 1 is this: is the sovereign Lord still reigning? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. The implied answer is, obviously he is. Number 2, does Jesus have a plan for this day? Number 3, does Jesus have a purpose for my life today? Number 4, will the Holy Spirit be guiding me today? Number 5, am I available when he directs me? Number 6, am I willing to surrender to him? Number 7, will I rest in his provision? And number 8, will I diligently accept any assignment he gives me today? As a servant of Jesus Christ, that is my greater need, is to submit to him, to know that he's working, and to have confidence in him. I want to close with these 2 verses from Psalm 57. David writes this psalm, and it sounds like he was dealing with a lot of frustration, anger, and danger in his own life. He says, my soul is in the midst of lions. I lie down amid fiery beasts, the children of man, whose teeth are spears and arrows, whose tongues are sharp swords. But listen to the resolve. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. Man, my journey is going to continue to be rocky. I think yours will be too, bumpy in many places. But we know that God is sovereign. And that's not just a sing-songy denial of our reality. That's a rock to which we can cling. And so I hope that today you are clinging to him and exalting him and seeing a bigger picture in your life. God bless you.